The galaxy was old, and its stars had seen countless wars, countless empires, and countless rulers rise and fall. But one name echoed across every world, one power that every tongue whispered with both fear and obedience: the Empire. For 1,000 years it stood unbroken, its fleets like storms, its armies like floods, and its rulers like gods. Alien races bent their knees and silenced their songs. The idea of resistance had become nothing more than a forgotten tale told by the old. No one dared speak of victory against the Empire. Not even in dreams. They were invincible. Or so the universe believed. And then came humanity. They were late to the galactic stage. A small species from a blue world tucked on the edge of a forgotten spiral arm. When the Empire's ships arrived, humanity watched in silence, studied in caution, and listened to every warning. But humans did not kneel. Commander Elias stood on the bridge of a Terran ship, his eyes fixed on the enormous projection of the Empire's envoy. The alien's voice was deep and cruel. "Submit or be erased," it said. With a tone that carried centuries of victory, the crew waited for Elias to speak. Many expected fear, hesitation, or surrender, but Elias only said one word: no. It was not shouted. It was not dramatic. It was spoken calm and steady, as if the universe itself would bend to that single refusal. The envoy laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You think your fragile kind can resist the Empire?" But Elias did not answer. His silence was heavier than words. The first strike came days later. The Empire wanted to make an example. A human colony burned. Cities crumbled. Skies were filled with fire. Yet when the smoke cleared, the survivors did not beg. They rebuilt, brick by brick, hand by hand. News spread fast across the stars. Other species watched in shock. How can they stand after such ruin? They whispered, "Humans are weak, soft, mortal." Yet the humans stood again. In the halls of the Empire, reports were brought before the High Council. "The Terrans will not bow," one commander said. "They rise again and again." The rulers laughed, calling them stubborn animals. But behind the laughter was the first shadow of unease, because history had never seen this before. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, stories began to move like fire in dry grass. Small races long broken under the Empire's heel whispered of humanity, of a people who faced the invincible and said no. In one refugee camp, an elder alien told the children, "There is a world, far from here, where humans fight the storm, not with strength, but with a fire inside their hearts." On Earth, humanity gathered in unity, something rare in their own history. Old rivals joined hands, old borders blurred. The threat of the Empire had forced them into one people, and in their unity was power. Commander Elias stood again before his crew, his voice calm. "The Empire believes it cannot be beaten, but we are not fighting their fleets. We are fighting their myth, their lie of invincibility." The crew listened, some afraid, some burning with determination, but none looked away. The First Fleet battle was chaos. The Empire's ships were larger, stronger, more advanced. But humans fought with something no machine could match: improvisation. They turned wreckage into weapons, traps into opportunities, defeat into lessons. The Empire won that battle, but they lost something far greater: the illusion that they were untouchable. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw the Empire bleed, and humanity, fragile and small, had been the one to draw the blood. Humanity's defiance the galaxy had seen resistance before, small sparks of rebellion that were crushed under the Empire's boot. But this spark was different. This spark refused to die. The humans were few compared to the vast might of the Empire. Their fleets were smaller, their weapons less advanced, and their soldiers less armored. Yet when the Empire pressed down with the weight of centuries, the humans pressed back. On a distant station orbiting a pale star, alien observers gathered, their voices hushed, screens flickering with the images of human ships in combat. The aliens were traders, smugglers, and refugees, none of them warriors. But all of them knew one thing: the Empire always won. But this time, something was different. The screen showed a Terran frigate twisting through space, its engines burning. Hot, debris trailing behind, the Empire's destroyer fired, great lances of light tearing across the void. Yet the human ship moved with reckless creativity, turning into the attack rather than away, pieces of its hull breaking, but the core staying alive. Madness, one alien whispered. They should surrender, but they did not. The frigate launched a final burst of missiles, not at the destroyer, but at a nearby asteroid field. The explosion shattered the rocks, sending a storm of fragments crashing into the Empire ship. Its shields bent, flickered, and then broke. The aliens watching gasped. No one had seen such audacity. Humans had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. The frigate was lost, its crew gone, but its sacrifice crippled a vessel 10 times its size. Across the galaxy, the tale spread, told in hushed voices. The humans fight with no fear. They fight as if death is only a step, not an end. In the chambers of the Empire, the High Council was not amused. One ruler slammed a clawed hand against the table. They dare humiliate us, it roared. End them. Erase their worlds. Show the galaxy what becomes of fools. The Empire prepared its great fleets, millions of ships gathering, a force so overwhelming that even the bravest species would bow. But humanity was not preparing to bow. Humanity was preparing to resist. On Earth, the skies were filled with work. Shipyards lit like suns as new vessels rose. They were not as advanced as the Empire's designs, but they were fast, versatile, and built with human stubbornness. Pilots trained day and night. Soldiers drilled in both old and new ways. Children even learned in schools how to fight if the need came. Humanity was becoming a wall built not of stone, but of will. Commander Elias stood before the United Assembly. Leaders of every nation gathered in one chamber, something the world had never seen before. His voice was steady. The Empire believes itself eternal. It believes no one can strike it, but every wall has cracks, every myth has weakness. We are the hammer, and we will find the fracture. Many in the chamber were afraid. The Empire was vast, its history heavy with victory. But when they looked at Elias, they felt something stir inside, a quiet fire that refused to be put out. The first major battle came at Vega. The Empire sent a fleet of 300 warships, their size, alone enough to terrify. Humanity sent only 80, smaller, lighter, but commanded by minds that refused to follow predictable patterns. A fight was brutal. Fire tearing through the black, ships colliding, shields shattering. Humans lost half their fleet, but the Empire lost something far greater. They lost certainty, because, though the numbers favored them, though the firepower was theirs, the humans did not break. They fought with traps, ambushes, decoys, and sheer defiance. At the end, the Empire retreated, leaving wreckage behind. The galaxy could not believe it. Never in living memory had the Empire pulled back. Whispers became louder. Perhaps they are not invincible after all, aliens murmured. Perhaps these humans have found a way. In hidden corners, in mines and factories, in stations ruled by fear, aliens began to hope. They began to dream. Of standing, of fighting, of saying no. The Empire, enraged, doubled its efforts, but the seeds had already been planted. The image of humans standing unbroken spread like wildfire, and humanity, once thought fragile, had become something more. They had become the crack in the illusion of invincibility. Commander Elias looked out over the stars after the Battle of Vega, his ship scarred but alive, his crew weary but unbowed. They think themselves gods, he said softly, but gods can bleed, and once they bleed, they can fall. Asterisk, his words echoed through the halls, not just of his ship, but through every human ear that heard the report, through every ally watching from afar. The universe had believed the Empire was invincible, but humanity was proving otherwise, step by step, battle by battle, refusal by refusal, and the galaxy was beginning to believe in a new story, a story not of fear, but of defiance. Asterisk the Empire. Strikes Back the Empire had never been mocked before, never been challenged so openly. For centuries their word had been law. But now the name of humanity was spreading like a spark through dry fields. And sparks, if left alone, could become fire. The High Council raged in their chambers, their voices like thunder. "These humans make us appear weak," one ruler snarled. "Our vassals whisper rebellion. Our enemies stir from their graves, crush them, erase them, break their bones until the galaxy forgets their name." And so the Empire moved with all its weight. Fleets stretching across the void, black banners cutting through the stars. A storm was coming, and it would fall upon humanity. The first blow was merciless. Colonies near the rim burned, cities turned to glass, oceans boiled under orbital fire. The Empire showed no mercy, and yet, even in the ruins, the humans did not bow. On the world of Ardent, a farming planet with no great defenses, the people should have surrendered. They should have opened their gates, but instead they armed themselves with whatever they had, old rifles, mining tools, even sharpened iron poles. When the Empire soldiers marched through the fields, the farmers fought, and though they fell in thousands, their defiance burned brighter than any weapon. The galaxy watched in silence, some with pity, some with awe. How could such a fragile people refuse to yield? In the refugee camps, whispers grew louder. The humans bleed, they die, but they do not surrender. Commander Elias stood in the war room on Earth, maps glowing around him, reports of destruction filling the air. His officers were weary, their voices heavy. "We are losing too much," one said. "Our fleets are stretched thin. Our people are suffering." Elias looked at them with steady eyes. "Yes, we are bleeding, but so is the Empire. They have never fought an enemy that does not break. Every day we live, we wound their pride. Every day we stand, their myth crumbles. The war continued, battles fierce and endless. The Empire brought its greatest generals, its most terrifying weapons. And yet the humans answered not with stronger ships, but with sharper minds, traps laid in asteroid fields, ambushes sprung in nebula clouds, decoys that lured entire fleets into chasing shadows. Still, the price was terrible. On the world of Haven, children were evacuated into caves while soldiers fought above. Entire families gave their lives so that a single transport could escape. On the station of Meridian, engineers overloaded the reactor, destroying the station, but taking 3 Empire dreadnoughts with it. The galaxy wept for humanity, but also, secretly, it admired them. For where others would have knelt, humanity only clenched its fists tighter. And something began to change. In quiet corners, in secret meetings, other species began to rise. Small rebellions flickered to life. Alien voices whispered, "If humans can fight, so can we." The Empire felt it too, the unease spreading through its vassals, and so it struck harder, declaring that Earth itself would be destroyed, that humanity's home would be erased from the stars. The message spread across the galaxy, the declaration of doom. Some mourned, believing the end was near, but others waited, wondering if perhaps this would be the moment the invincible would finally break. On Earth, the people did not hide. The skies were filled with work. Cities dug shelters, shipyards roared louder, the young and the old alike preparing. Children carried messages, farmers built barricades, scholars turned their knowledge into weapons. Every hand found purpose. The world became a fortress, not of steel, but of will. Commander Elias walked the line of soldiers, their faces tired, their armor dented, their weapons worn. yet their eyes held no fear. He spoke to them softly. The Empire thinks it can erase us, but we are not just a world, we are an idea. And you cannot erase an idea that has taken root in the hearts of millions. The soldiers stood straighter, their hands gripping tighter, when the Empire fleet arrived in Earth's skies. The stars vanished under the shadow of warships. It was a sight meant to break hope, to remind all that the Empire was eternal. But instead, the humans looked up and felt something else, not despair, but fury. The first shots lit the heavens, fire streaking across the void, and the greatest battle of humanity's history had begun. The galaxy held its breath, wondering if this would be the end of the defiance, or the beginning of something greater. Asterisk the turning point. The sky above Earth was a storm of fire, thousands of Empire ships casting shadows over the blue planet. It was a sight to break the spirit of any people, and yet, on that day, humanity did not bow. The Empire believed brute force was enough. They believed numbers alone could crush defiance. But humans had learned in every war of their history that battles were not always won by strength. Battles were won by cunning, by patience, by refusing to break. Commander Elias stood on the bridge of his flagship, his face lit by the glow of incoming data. The Empire's fleet stretched like an endless wall before him. "We cannot match them ship for ship," his second-in-command whispered, fear trembling in his voice. "No," Elias said, his tone calm, "but we do not need to." For months, humanity had prepared a plan, risky, desperate, one chance in 1,000. But it was the only chance they had. The order was given, and the fleet split, smaller human ships darting away in scattered patterns. To the Empire, it looked like retreat, like chaos. But it was not. It was the beginning of the trap. The Empire chased, their commanders confident, mocking the humans for their foolish scattering. But as they followed, the humans lured them deeper, into asteroid fields, into gas clouds, into debris fields littered with wreckage from past battles. Every environment chosen carefully, every move designed to stretch the Empire's vast fleet. Then, one human ship sacrificed itself, detonating near a gas cloud. The chain reaction swallowed 6 enemy cruisers. Another hid behind an asteroid, firing point-blank into the engines of a passing destroyer. Even in death, the humans took their enemies with them. From above, the battle looked like madness. Small sparks against an ocean of fire, but slowly, piece by piece, the impossible began to happen. The Empire's perfect wall of ships broke apart. Across the galaxy, hidden transmitters carried the news. Rebels, refugees, and slaves watched in awe. "The humans are not retreating," they whispered. "They are hunting gods." On Earth itself, the people fought as fiercely as those in orbit. When Empire soldiers landed, they expected quick surrender. But they were met with farmers turning fields into minefields, students setting ambushes in the ruins of their cities. Even the old carried weapons, striking from shadows, refusing to be silent. Every street became a battlefield, every hill a fortress. The Empire grew frustrated, their pride wounded. They had come to erase humanity in a single strike. Yet days stretched into weeks, and still the humans fought, and then came the moment the human fleet regrouped, not to strike the Empire's strongest, but its weakest, the supply lines, the fuel depots, the communication relays. Ships too minor to guard properly, yet vital to the entire invasion. Elias gave the order, and the humans struck like lightning. Small squadrons of fast ships cutting deep into the enemy's veins, destroying what kept the giant alive. At first the Empire laughed, until their ships began to falter, until fleets found themselves without fuel, without coordination, until the massive armada above Earth began to collapse in confusion. It was then that the humans unleashed their final move: hidden weapons, crude railguns built into asteroids, experimental cannons powered by Earth's reactors. Weapons untested, dangerous, but devastating when unleashed all at once. The sky lit like dawn. Empire dreadnoughts falling in fire. The heavens thundered with explosions. For the first time in living memory, the invincible had been pushed back on the ground. The soldiers of Earth raised their weapons to the burning sky and cheered. Battered, broken, but alive, the news spread faster than light, across secret networks and whispered markets. The galaxy trembled as the truth spread. Humanity had survived. Humanity had stood against the full might of the Empire and had not been erased. In the halls of power across alien worlds, voices stirred. If humans can fight them, then so can we. The myth of invincibility had cracked. Commander Elias stood on his bridge, his uniform torn, his voice hoarse, but his eyes still steady. They called themselves eternal, he said, but eternity ends today. We have shown them the truth. They can be hurt, they can be beaten. His crew looked at him with awe, knowing the war was not yet won, but also knowing something greater, something impossible had happened. The turning point had come. The galaxy no longer believed the Empire was untouchable. Now they believed in humanity. Asterisk the fall of invincibility. The galaxy had waited, watched, and whispered. For centuries the Empire had been a wall no one could climb, a storm no one could survive. But now cracks had spread through its armor, cracks carved by human hands. The defeat above Earth was not just a battle lost. It was a wound to the myth of invincibility. Across the stars, enslaved worlds stirred, rebels rose from shadows, old enemies of the Empire crawled from the ruins of history, and they looked toward Earth, toward humanity, and found hope. The Empire knew it too. Rage burned in their halls. Their high council spoke with fury. The Terrans have poisoned the galaxy with defiance. One ruler hissed, their fire must be drowned, their light must be smothered. But though their voices were filled with anger, there was something else beneath, something the Empire had never felt before: fear. Commander Elias stood in the war chamber, holograms of allied ships flickering before him. Not only human vessels, but fleets of species that had once hidden, now joining the fight. 1,000 banners that had been lowered for centuries now rose. Again, the galaxy was no longer silent. It was roaring. The final plan was set. Risky, desperate. But so was everything humanity had done. Strike the Empire where it was strongest, at its very heart, the capital world. The Iron Throne of the High Council. If it fell, the illusion would shatter completely. The Allied fleet gathered like no one had seen in 1,000 years. Thousands of ships, many broken and patched, some ancient, some crude, but all ready. And at their core, the humans. Elias addressed them, his voice steady, carried across every channel. For 1,000 years, the Empire has ruled through fear. They called themselves eternal, invincible, untouchable. Today, we show them they are none of those things. Today, we show them they can fall. The fleet moved, lights burning against the void, toward the capital. The battle began before they even arrived. The Empire threw everything in their path: walls of dreadnoughts, storms of fighters, weapons that blazed like suns. But the Allies pressed on, humanity leading the charge, fighting not as soldiers of one world, but as the voice of every world that had been silenced. Every explosion, every sacrifice carried weight. Human ships once again fought with reckless brilliance, crashing into larger vessels, using debris as weapons, turning defeat into victory. And then, at last, the capital world loomed before them, a jewel wrapped in armor, a fortress planet that no enemy had ever reached. The Empire filled its skies with fire, but the Allies surged forward, their numbers thinned, but their will unbroken on the surface. The final push began. Human soldiers side by side with alien rebels stormed the palaces, their boots echoing in halls that had once seemed untouchable, their voices shouting through chambers that had only ever known silence. The High Council. In their towering throne room, roared in disbelief. "This cannot be," one screamed. "We are eternal," another cried, but the walls shook and the doors fell, and into the chamber walked soldiers who had once been called weak, fragile, mortal. Elias himself stood at the front. Scarred, weary, but unbowed, he looked upon the rulers of the empire, and his words were simple. Invincible? No, you only made others believe it. Today, the lie ends. The battle was chaos, desperate, but short, for the empire's greatest weapon had never been its fleets. It had been fear, and when fear was broken, the rest followed. The galaxy saw. It saw the capital fall, saw the banners of the empire torn down, saw the rulers dragged from their thrones, and in that moment the myth died. Silence spread across the stars. And then, slowly, voices rose, voices of worlds long chained, voices of people long forgotten, voices shouting, "They are not invincible." And at the center of it all stood humanity, small, fragile, mortal, yet unyielding. When the war was over, when the fleets drifted silent and the guns quieted, Elias stood before his people, his voice calm. "We did not fight to rule. We fought to prove a truth, that no power is eternal, that courage can break fear, that even the smallest can stand against the greatest." The galaxy listened, and for the first time in an age, it did not listen to the empire. It listened to hope. The universe had believed in the invincibility of the empire, but humanity had proved otherwise. And from that day, when children on distant worlds asked who could stand against the impossible, the answer was always the same, whispered with awe, spoken with pride. The humans, asterisk,